Alright, so hello, my fellow Unmatched Lads. We're back with Strategy Sunday. It's volume 10. We're looking at Daredevil, the devil of Hell's Kitchen himself, as we see. Um, yeah, we'll just hop right into it. Not much of a start here. Um, we'll jump into the basic stats. Alright, so Daredevil is a melee fighter, movement of 3 with a starting health of 17. He has no sidekicks. He is a solo fighter. Um, move 3 is pretty nice. Like, it's always better than move 2, obviously, and being a solo fighter, that move 3 definitely helps you getting around the board and, like, a bit more forcing the initiative, especially against other move 2 fighters, where you could just, like, attack them and maneuver away and they have to boost to get to you and stuff. So move 3 is really nice to have that as a solo fighter, especially if you're melee. 17 starting health is also pretty beefy. We've seen like She-Hulk with 20, oh, of course Rex with 27. Like 17 is that's pretty beefy, and you technically have infinite healing in the deck, but like it's Daredevil, you technically have infinite of everything. So that doesn't say much, but you have a good chunk of healing in the deck. So that 17 is most of the time way more than you think. Um, being a solo fighter, of course, as always, can suck a bit since all attacks are directed on Daredevil himself, and you might struggle with the initiative a bit because as a solo fighter, you always are the one who has to approach most of the time, and yeah. But in Daredevil's case, initiative is a special kind of topic because you only have a 22 card deck. That's huge. That's 8 less cards than the usual 30, so you will definitely have the initiative at the start of the game. Of course, as you could think if you don't know the character, yet he has recursion, meaning he can shuffle cards from his discard pile back into the deck to kind of increase his deck size. But he starts with 22, so if we imagine a scenario where both players just double maneuver for some reason and overdraw, Daredevil would have to approach at some point because his deck will be way earlier, like on 0, and he would take fatigue damage than the opponent. So yeah, initiative is a fun thing with Daredevil. And then out of those 22 cards, 8 are unique, so that should make the deck like extremely consistent. If we would imagine like the normal 30 card deck has yeah 12 to 13 cards, which is like this. Imagine if we had like 4 extra 2 off cards. So most of the cards in this deck are 3 offs. So like I think there what was it? Only 3 2 off cards. Not 3, it's 2. Yeah, it's only 2 off cards. So yeah, everything else you see almost every time, so that should make the deck consistent, but there are some downsides to it. Because you have a character ability, and it says during combat, if you have 2 of your cards in your hand, you may blind boost your attack or defense. If you have other during combat effects, choose the order. Okay, so this ability is really interesting, especially for a character like Daredevil, who only has a 22 card deck. Um, since you don't have any card draw on your cards at all, it is pretty likely for you to be pushed towards a low hand size at some point in the game. Of course, you can just double maneuver every turn and kind of like just run away, but yeah, you have the initiative because you only have a 22 card deck, so you will have to come in at some point, and if you attack, well, you will probably be pushed towards a lower hand size because your opponent will, of course, counter pressure after. And Daredevil's hand size is a really funny thing because your opponent kind of, as I said, because you don't have any card draw, pressure you a lot and then punish you for your bad draw because you might not draw into defense or you might just not have any more in your deck. But this ability kind of prevents them from doing that at some point because if you have 2 of your cards, you can just blind boost your attacks, that could hurt. Um, Average boost value in the deck is like you can just say it's 2. It's a bit higher because you have 4/3 boosts and 3/1 boosts, but yeah, it's basically 2. So being able to blind boost both your attacks or defenses, if you want to, can make you an absolute tank or a heavy hitter at that point. So your opponent might be a bit scared of this. If you imagine you have a 4 value attack and you blind boost that with a 3 boost, that's a 7 value attack coming at them. Or you could have, I don't know, 6 value defenses. It's really insane. But of course, you are losing those cards. It's blind boosting. You discard the top card of your deck and add the boost value to your actual card's value. So you lose the card, and losing cards, since you only have a 22 card deck, can be really bad. There is one card in your deck that actually allows you to get the recursion, and if you blind boost that away, that could suck insanely hard. So knowing when to use or even play for this ability can decide between losing or winning games. Because there are some matchups where you just kind of want to stay at this low hand count and kind of play the Bloody Mary style, always being at 3 cards, because, well, then you can attack, and since you attack, you only have 2 or fewer cards in your hand after that because you are attacking with the third card, then you can blind boost. And in some matchups, you just want to run away and keep high hand count because, hey, you might die otherwise. So knowing how to play around this ability is always like kind of mini game as well with your opponent because they will have a plan for this. Maybe they want to pressure your hand size a lot and maybe tempt you to blind boost, or maybe they just want to avoid it at all costs and maneuver away once you are at 4 cards or lower. I don't know. There are many interesting scenarios that this ability provides. So yeah, it will differ in every single game, of course, but there are some matchups where you really want to blind boost a lot. There's some where you don't want to at all, and it makes this ability really interesting. But yeah, I think this is the most text I've had yet on a combat card. It's Devil of Hell's Kitchen. It's a 4 value attack for Daredevil. With a boost value of 3, you have 2 copies of this, and it says, during combat, if you have no cards in your deck, the value of this card is 8 instead. After combat, shuffle this card and the top 4 cards of your discard pile back into your deck. Okay, so we'll just go over about the usual stuff before we get into the fancy ones. 4 value attacks are good. There's like nothing you can complain about, and they will usually deal like 1, maybe 2 damage over your opponent's defenses if not max value blocked. But the value of this card is usually not what it's used for. Although there are some funny things. Of course, after combat, you get to shuffle this and the top 4 cards of your discard pile back into the deck. Okay, so first of all, with Daredevil, you have to have like a proper discard pile in order how the cards went there. You can't just spread them out as you want because you will have to keep track just because of this card. And that's 5 recursion just with 1 card. If you get this triggered, the first one, you will add +5 cards to your deck because this goes back and the other 4 that are on top of your discard pile. So this card, reshuffling itself, basically means if your opponent doesn't feint it, you technically have an infinite deck. Because you have 2 copies of this, they can loop each other, they loop themselves, and yeah, you just basically have infinite recursion. Characters that don't have feints cry against you. Because, well, you can just run away the whole game, shuffle back the cards you want, and yeah, they really have to get in there and pressure you a lot to kind of make you worry about your health and kind of try to kill you before you even start your recursion. But, of course, if this gets feinted, it's still 2 damage over the feint, so that might be a win condition for you if you are going for damage. But speaking of damage, the during combat effect, if you have no cards in the deck, the value is 8. Well, that will not happen as often. Because, well, you don't want to be at low deck count with Daredevil. of course, because hey, fatigue is a thing. But it's a neat scenario because it can be a win condition for you at some point if your opponent like I said doesn't have feints. You can just kind of play this as an 8 value devil, shuffle top 4 cards back again, get all of them again back to hand, maneuver away. Maybe there were good defenses, and then um, you just play this as an 8 value devil again because they can't do anything about it. That can be a win condition in some matchups. Other cool trick that you can do if you only have one card in deck and you attack with only with only 2 cards in hand, you can blind boost the last card of your deck away. Maybe it's like a Feint and that's 1 boost, so it will bump to a 5. But since you can choose the order of the during combat effects, after that this would bump to an 8 because you have no cards in your deck. So that's a cool thing you can do. Um, but yeah, mostly it's used for recursion because this and 4 additional cards is insane. Um, Normally you need like 2 devils to kind of get onto an even deck count with your opponent, because if you think, yeah, you have 8 less cards, this is kind of like 5 additional ones each time, so you'd be at 32 if you get 2 of those, and maybe you blind boosted once or twice with your ability or played one of your other cards that discards the top card of your deck. So you can just say kind of, if you get 2 of these, you're about average deck size with your opponent. And from that point on, well, everything every time you get this triggered, it will just be insane value increase for your deck, um, just in comparison to theirs. Um, this can lead to you getting an infinite deck, like I said, against many different fighters. And well, your opponent will want to stop that at like most times. One might say, yeah, you only have 2 of these, shouldn't be that hard to feint both. Like if you know when to actually feint at the proper time, yeah, might be might be a good thing, but yeah, you have other ways to get this back. Um, Other thing you might want to do with this card is not just play it for, hey, I get 5 recursion, but actually to think about what you recur with it. Because there might be some cards in some matchups that you want to recur more than others. For example, if you need something to break pins, you might want to reshuffle one of your schemes that lets you move through opposing fighters. So you might want to play this card just when there is like one of those schemes in your last 4 cards that you played. Or maybe you just want defense, so you might just not attack at all again, except for this, and then reshuffle all your defenses. So that's also one thing your opponent can think about. Maybe if you play this, they are actually fine with you shuffling back because you might just shuffle back bad cards against them in their matchup. Um, so it's really interesting just to think about when to play this and who to play this against as well, because there are also some fighters. Jill is a new example out of the new Tales to Amaze set, where Jill herself can feint, but Daisy, her sidekick, cannot. So that might be a matchup where you just want to go for devils onto Daisy. But of course, Jill knows that and might want to let her die. So one neat trick I'll give to you now. You can go with the first devil onto Jill herself and just try to get the recursion, because it doesn't really matter, because later you can just play the second one onto Daisy and then you'll shuffle the first one back as well. So you kind of don't lose value, but Jill wasted one of her cancels. That's really cool. That's a neat trick you can do. But it just also creates that kind of mind game when to go for the devil, when to feint for the devil. But yeah, like I said, even if this is feinted, it's still 2 damage, and you might even be able to blind boost above it. So also one thing you can do is if you want to go for a devil, you have like maybe 2 other good defenses in hand, you might just go for it when you are at low hand count. Because if you're at low hand count, well, you can blind boost and your opponent is like less incentivized to feint. Because even if they feint, they can't feint your ability. You're not King Arthur. You don't suck. um, so you might just be able to blind boost this up to a 6 reliably and deal 4 damage over their feint, which might be totally fine for you. and because you might just get it back later or whatever, or you don't even need the recursion, but it would just be a like good extra. So this is also there's so many cool things with this card that you have to think about. That's why there's so much text. It's insane. Um, this card, how you use it, basically makes or breaks your game. Um, it, this card is your whole win condition. It's either getting the recursion or it's getting like good blind boost hits with this or getting this as an 8 and then actually killing your opponent. There's almost no other win condition you have. This card is everything. So knowing when to play this card and who to play against it is key in every single Daredevil game. That's why I'm like spending kind of like 10 minutes on this one card. It's insane. Uh, so yeah, but I think I've talked about it enough. There are many different win conditions with this card, how you can use it, and it will be up to you depending on the matchup, depending on the game state, what you decide to do. And it's extremely interesting. Getting to the next one, Man Without Fear. It's a 2-value attack for Daredevil with a boost value of 3. It has 2 copies, and it says, during combat, you may blind boost this attack. This is in addition to any blind boost from Daredevil's special ability. Okay, so 2-value attacks like usually rely on their effect to be actual good. Like either they have some draw or movement or bump to a higher value, like this. So, blind boosting, like we said before with the ability, can be good, can be bad. Um, it can bump up this value technically to an 8 if you use your ability plus this blind boost and hit an 8. Like you hit 2-3 boosts, which is insanely unlikely, but it can happen. So yeah, might be worth it, but I would say blind boosting itself is already a big gamble because if you hit a devil and that might be the last one you have in your deck, well, your recursion is stopped. You don't have any more recursion, and your opponent, even if it's not the last one, but like maybe the second to last one, and your opponent still has 2 feints. Well, before they needed to line up every single feint into a devil to stop your recursion, because if they just fuck up one, well, you shuffle the other one back and hey, deck is infinite. But now they have 2 tries to feint the one last devil, which is insanely bad for you. Um, so blind boosting once is already a gamble. Blind boosting twice is even worse. Like that could hit 2 of your good defenses, and then you don't have good defenses. It could just hit 2-1 boosts and don't do anything. It could hit your devils. It's way too risky most of the time. Of course, well, if it goes undefended and yeah, you get free damage, yeah, might be worth it. But it's just mostly used as a feint bait to get more of your devils triggered. You might just play this whenever like you're telegraphing to go for a devil. It's not like a card that you want to recycle most of the time with devil, but hey, it has a 3 boost. That like you love it. If you are playing for a blind boosting, you can shuffle this back and actually go for shuffling 3 boosts, which could be cool because hey, then you're more likely to actually get good value out of a blind boosting. Also, yeah, this is like if you need to reach 6 spaces in some case on some maps, well, 3 boost this, just throw it away. It's mostly just bait card or throwaway or boosting, whatever. And like you love yourself when you hit this with a blind boost. That's just +3 value to your card and you don't lose anything basically. Um, yeah, it's just probably the worst card in the deck. Not really good, but yeah, I guess the boost value is what this card is for, so yeah. Then we have Take an E. It's a 3-value versatile card for Daredevil with a boost value of 2. You have 3 copies of this. It's after combat, discard the top card of your deck. Recover health equal to its boost value. Okay, so yeah. I've kind of ditched this before with the blind boosting because I said, yeah, maybe have another card that kind of blind boosts. This is it. Okay, so 3-value versatiles are good. That's like average block value. It's good, like, will prevent some damage, like, not really deal much, but hey, it also has an effect. The after combat effect is basically blind boosting, but instead of bumping card value, you heal. Now, some might say, but what's the difference? The difference is if your opponent is attacking you for something like a skirmish. You play this and you would blind boost the card and maybe hit a 2 boost. Well, you would have a 5 value defense, you would take no damage, and yeah, you survive. If you don't blind boost this card but actually deal the effect and discard the top card and it's again a 2 boost, well, you took 1 from the attack earlier, but now you're gonna heal 2. So you net 1 health, which is like huge. This can be up to 3 healing if you had something like a Man Without Fear. And that can technically make this a 6 value block with upside because you heal if your opponent did attack for something lower. Of course, the downside to this is that if you were like attacked with a skirmish and you were at 1 health, well, you're killed before you can actually heal back up again. So in most cases throughout the game, this is just outright better than actually blind boosting because hey, if your opponent attacked with something lower, this is free healing. But if not, well, it's just like if you blind boosted. So yeah, it's really good. However, it still mills a card from the top of your deck. So just like with your ability, be a bit careful when to play this. If like you only have one devil left in the deck and it's really important for you to trigger that, maybe not use this card. Like maybe. Of course, in some situations you have to use it because you would die otherwise, sure, but it might just be worth to as you take a hit afterwards, just to get the devil cycle, and then, well, you can heal with this back up again later. So yeah, this is the card that gives you technically infinite healing, and it's still probably like it's your best value block, and it's probably also just like your best block in general. But and at most of the game. But yeah, just be a bit careful with this. But yeah, great card. Then we have Grappling Hook. Grappling Hook. It's a 3 value versatile with a booster of 2, 3 copies, and it says after combat, move Daredevil up to 2 spaces. Okay, so this is actually a really basic card, like on paper, but it's actually way more important in the deck than you think. 3 value versatiles are good. That's just like before, average block value, you don't complain. Being able to move Daredevil after combat is really nice for a couple of reasons. First of all, you can kite with advantage, meaning if you actually have to approach your opponent, you can move in, attack with this, and then with the effect move out again, so they have to maneuver up to you and then attack, so you can double attack them. If that kind of makes sense. Um, that's really good. Also, since you will have the initiative at the start of the game, probably, you can also throw this as kind of like a feint bait. If they think you throw a devil, you play this. If they like normally blocked, well, you're still fine because you can move 2 away. If they did feint, well, you still deal 1 damage over the feint and your devil is kind of freed. So that's really good. What you also can do if you have to defend with this, because you maybe moved in and attacked with the devil, so you're ending adjacent, um, they can double attack you, but yeah, you can play this on the first defense and move 2 away, and then yay, they can't attack you again. Other things you can do is when a ranged fighter attacks you with a like with their second action, they moved up in your zone and then attacked. Now you can play this to move up to them, get the 2 spaces, then you end adjacent, you can attack and then maneuver away second action. So there are many cool things you can do with this card, but yeah, well, it's mainly used on defense, although this card is insanely versatile and like you can use it almost every time in a good way. But yeah, it's mainly used as a defense for you because like this, take a knee and one other card are like your main actual defenses because you only have 12 defenses in the deck out of 22 cards, which is kind of like a problem because that's kind of half your deck that you can't use for defense. So consistency issues. Like I said, technically the deck is consistent, but it really isn't. But yeah, it's just a great card, and yeah, love to see it. Then we have Feint. It's our typical Feint. It's a 2-value versatile, boost value 1, says immediately cancel all effects on your opponent's cards. You have 3 copies of this. So 2-value versatiles often are used for their effects, of course, because hey, their value is kinda not that great. This also is your only one boost in the deck, which is pretty important if you want to blind boost with your ability or actually get take a knee healing. Um, you love to see Feint in this deck, of course, since you can blind boost this if you're at low hand count to kind of negate the biggest weakness of this card being its low value. So if Bigfoot attacks you with a log and you were expecting a shift and you did throw the Feint because you would only take 1 from the shift, well, now you would take 4 from the log because log is a 6-value attack and, well, you don't cancel any effects. Well, you can still blind boost with your ability if you have a low hand count, and maybe you get a 2 or a 3 boost, and then this is kind of like a max value block, a 4 or 5 value block. So you can kind of negate that. So Feint in this deck is actually way better than in many other decks. However, it's also not as great because, hey, it's a 1 boost in a deck that relies on blind boosting and on like the healing on take a knee. So you kind of hate yourself if you hit this on a blind boost. What you can do in some matchups, just like how you can just want to recycle Man Without Fear and other devils, of course, to get 3 boosts back, you can avoid to shuffle back Feints in some matchups to actually guarantee that you have at least a 2 boost every single time when you blind boost or play take a knee. Because since this is your only 1 boost in deck, if all 3 are in your discard pile, well, you know that you will always boost for at least a 2. So that's one thing that you can actually play for to only recur 2 boosts or higher with your devil, if you don't really need the feints. Otherwise, there of course are some matchups where you desperately need feints. For example, Sinbad, where you just recycle feints like a maniac. But yeah, it makes this card even more versatile than in other decks because first of all, you can recur it, you can blind boost it to negate its issue, but you can also just try to not actually play it at all or actually not recycle it, just to not have the 1 boost in the deck. So yeah, you like to see it. It's a really good card and even probably better than in other decks. And then we have the last defense of your deck. It's Son of a Boxer. It's actually the only block card only that you have, the only blue. Boost value of 2. It's Son of a Boxer. After combat, if you lost the combat, deal 2 damage to a fighter adjacent to Daredevil. You have 3 copies of this. So 3 value blocks are good. It's average block value. You don't complain. The auto damage after combat is really nice. Well, auto damage is always nice, but in this case, even more. However, since it only triggers if you lost the combat, you're kinda trading health with this. Optimally, of course, your opponent attacked with something like a skirmish with a 4-value attack. You took 1, they will still take 2 damage because defender resolves first, so you get to deal the 2 damage because before they can move with the skirmish. So that's like a positive 1 health trade for you, which is really good. At some point, maybe, because this is like you can't block for higher than 3 if you're not blind boosting. You might just want to throw this into their big signature attack, maybe into the log, to actually deal 2 damage back, because hey, well, you won't value block either way. You could play a knee, but maybe you don't want to lose a card from the top of your deck to heal. And also, like, you maybe just want to deal the 2 auto damage because hey, if you get all 3 of this, that's 6 damage onto the opposing fighter, which is like that's insane. So what you want to do is you try to always force adjacency when your opponent wants to attack you, just because of the threat of this card being online. 2 damage might not seem like a lot, but it is a lot. Um, if this can just add up, you have another card that deals all the damage in the deck, and that might just shift your win condition from like going for devils to actually killing your opponent at some point. Because if they are low enough, you might just don't care if they feint your devils, because that's still 2 damage over their feint, and that damage might be able to kill them at some point. Since you have infinite healing, you don't really care about your health that much. Um, it's like not that much. You still care, of course, but yeah, this is just really good card, and yeah, you love to see it. The only problem, like I said, it you only have print 3 blocks, so everything that's like reliant on winning combat with a 4, if you don't blind boost, it will trigger if you don't feint, and yeah, so be a bit careful with that, and then you're fine. Then we'll get to the last 2 cards being your schemes. We have Breather. Booster of 2, you have 3 copies. It says choose an attack, defense, or a versatile card from your discard pile and return it to your hand. Alright, so yeah, I've talked about it kind of briefly on the Devil page, where I said, yeah, you only have 2 Devils, so hey, your opponent can feint 2 times, and that's it. No, they can't, because, well, you have 3 copies of this, and you can always get Devil back from a discard pile, so hey, you have 5 of them. Um, yeah, being able to get any non-scheme card from your discard pile is really good. It also is kinda like card draw because it adds it to your hand, but like you don't draw from the deck, you just basically decide what you will get into your hand from the next maneuver you would do, because you don't maneuver, you play this and get whatever card you want. Um, so that's really good. There are some cases where you just go for a devil to keep your chain. There are some cases where you just get defense because, hey, you would die otherwise. There are some cases where you go for maybe a feint, whatever. It could be the case. Um, but like the main thing about this card, it allows you to kind of have 5 devils. In any game, if like no devil or breather gets discarded by a blind boost, discarded for knee, maybe your opponent random discards or chosen discards, whatever. If that doesn't happen, you kind of have 5 devils. Most decks only have 3 feints or 3 cancels in general, and well, yeah, that almost guarantees you being able to go infinite against most decks. Um, but yeah, of course, there's counterplay, as always. Um, it does on paper. Since you only have like 12 blocks in a deck and no draw, you often use this to get defense back because hey, you die otherwise. Who cares for recursion if you die? But yeah, not much I can say about this card. Just get whatever you need in the situation. The only actual trick I have, whenever you recur a card into your hand, pick the copy of it that's furthest into your discard pile. So, like, maybe the first card you played was a Take an E, and then you played many other cards. So, when you play a Devil now, it would just shuffle back the top 4. So, Take an E, the first card you played would be the last one you get. Um, when you play Breather now, and you want a Take a Knee back, pick the one that's furthest into your discard pile, the one you played first, because the other ones that are on top are like more likely to get shuffled back into the deck with the new devils. Um, so you pick the one that's like furthest in there that you wouldn't probably get otherwise in the whole game, um, which is like a cool trick to also like influence what you'll get with your devils and which cards you'll get to play more often. Also, if like both of your devils are in discard pile, pick the one that's further in the discard pile so you can shuffle the other one more easily. And yeah, that's the only cool trick I have with this card. Otherwise, it's just pick the thing you need, and yeah, good card. And then last one, it's through adversity. Again, boost rate of 2, 3 copies. It says move Daredevil up to 4 spaces. He may move through opposing fighters. Deal 1 damage to each opposing fighter Daredevil moves through. Alright, so this is the only way to break pins. I already said it before. There might be a scheme that you really need to recur in some matchups. Maybe Raptors where you just get pinned constantly. Yeah, you need this a lot. This is your only way to get out of pins, since grappling hook actually only moves you 2 spaces, but doesn't say you can move through opposing fighters. So, well, if you're pinned, you're pinned. You can't move through them, even with grappling hook. So, yeah, this is the only thing that helps against that. Also, it's really good to kill one health sidekicks if you're playing against someone like maybe Robin Hood. You can't just insta kill maybe 2 outlaws with most of these cards. And then, yeah, Robin Hood cries a bit because you have 3 of these, and he only has a total of 6 outlaws if he gets both revives. And, well, you can kill half of his outlaws without even interacting with them. So that's really good. Also, if this at some point gets recurred with Devil, the ping damage, if you actually use it on their hero, can add up. If you add this to like the Son of a Boxer ping, that's a total of 9 auto damage if you get all of them onto the same fighter, which is like really good. That's half of the HP of most heroes. So that might add up, and like I said, might shift your win condition to actually get going for damage with devils. Um, this is also a pass in fatigue if it gets to that point. Breather also is one. So you have 6 passes in the deck, which is insane. Um, so what I would advise you is with this card, try to keep at least one in your hand, or maybe in your deck for like the whole game, because there will be a point in every game where you need this and you don't have it. It's like the main Daredevil thing that I've learned. Try to have at least one in hand and maybe one or two other even in the deck at all, like at all costs every single time. Daredevil, since you have no draw and this is the only way to escape pins. If your opponent can't pin you, so if they're not a solo fighter, please, 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 at least one. You have to at least have at least one in deck, so you can escape that pin at some point. That's the only thing I have to really advise you about this card. Have one. And yeah, that brings me to the conclusion. Daredevil, of course, is a super polarizing fighter that can technically go infinite in most matchups. Of course, your weaknesses, well, here, you don't have draw. You don't have draw. So aggression and pins can just insta-kill you in some matchups. Also, of course, if your opponent has many discards, maybe chosen discards, they can interrupt your cycling. So there is a big chunk of counterplay against Daredevil. It's like, against some characters, he might feel extremely overpowered. Maybe against Medusa, where you just, well, go insanely infinite and you have fun. She can't do much about it. She only has like 3 good attacks that actually deal damage, and well, you have taken E, so who cares? Um, you don't really have to interact with her at all, and just outlast her, and the game will like go for about an hour, and it will be not fun for anyone. And then there's games like against maybe Black Widow where you just get pressured so hard because you have to discard half your hand, then she Budapests and draws 5, and you have to discard even more, and well, you're dead turn 2. That might just happen, but there are also like many matchups where it's even, where it's just a cool back and forth between like playing with the hand sizes, and yeah. But that's like the main key with him. How you manage your hand size will often decide your games, since you have to plan how to tackle every single matchup. In the Black Widow one, for example, you basically only have a chance if you play low hand size to actually pressure her and like deal damage over her mediocre blocks, kinda. Um, but it's like still not great for you. Little Red as well, you tend to blind boost a lot since you want to deal more damage to her than she does back to you with her auto damage cards. Also, you want to kill off Huntsman fast and you don't have any action gain or big values where you could actually do that. And you also want to like cycle devils onto him, so that might be a strategy you go for. Whatever. It's just you have to have a plan with how to use your hand size, when to use your ability with a blind boosting, um, and you have to have a game plan. It's just, will you run away the whole game and go for devils because your opponent doesn't have feints and you just have to survive? You basically do the Winter Soldier thing there. Um, will you play with low hand size, leaving you at like the mercy of your draw? If you don't draw defense, well, you're fucked. But you're able to blind boost to maybe like scare off your opponent in that case. There are so many little decisions that you have to make throughout the game, um, which like you will only get right if you play a matchup more often, if you play Daredevil more often. Um, this is not a beginner-friendly character, I would say. He's very difficult to play perfectly, like it's insanely difficult, but if you can get it right, he can be insanely fun. Even though it might not seem on paper because hey, going infinite, it's an insanely bad design mechanic, but yeah. Usually you play a game of pressure and initiative with your opponent, kinda um, forcing them into uncomfortable situation just to strike with a devil right after. You kind of play with your hand sizes, um, try to put the initiative onto them at some point when you get your devils off, and like the more you get out of the devils, the more worried your opponent is and the more hyper they will go. So also plan for that. Like once you get your second devil triggered, your opponent will say, "Oh damn, we're even now. Shit." So they might start to play more aggressively or whatever. Just have a plan for that, and like you always have to think about your win condition and how to achieve it. It can shift throughout the game, but with Daredevil, it's like I just want to point it out because many people will probably just think, "Hey, I just go infinite every single time." No, that's not how it works. But yeah, hey, card tier list. Well, as always, placements will depend on matchup, and not even just on matchup, also on situation. Um, yeah, D tier. I don't think you have a D tier card. You like you only have 8 cards in the deck, so it would kind of suck if one of them is like utter garbage, because then 1/8 of your deck would be utter garbage. The only C tier card for me is Man Without Fear, mainly used as bait and for the boost, but like you can't control the blue boost because it's blind boost, so well, you love when you hit it, but otherwise it's kind of like a card you never use to actually do its effect. So yeah, C tier for me. B tier, Feint. Feint just all around good card. It can hurt sometimes if you're not able to blind boost and play this into a big value attack because, well, your highest block printed is a 3, so that might hurt at some point, but still a really good card, and you are able to blind boost maybe. If you play low hand count, then that's not the biggest issue. Through adversity, it's maybe not the best card in the deck, but it's one of the most important ones for sure. Just being able to break pins, finish off one of sidekicks that might annoy you, or just for the auto damage or the pass itself, really good. Breather, really versatile. You can just get one extra copy of whatever other card you want, except through adversity and itself. So you don't complain about that. Just be smart about when to use it and for what. Son of a Boxer, the auto damage will add up throughout the game. It's really good. The threat of just 2 auto damage on your opponent's turn is really big because they might maybe just lose from there on because you have lethal with your 8 value devil or whatever. Um, just really good card. Grappling hook, insanely versatile. Can use it on attack, the card with advantage, maybe escape double attacks. Just have a bit more flexibility with your maneuvering and moving around the board. Really good. And then the S tier cards, the ones that are like top dog. Take an E. Take an E is insanely good. That's basically infinite healing. It makes it so incredibly tanky. If you hit 1 or 2 3 boosts in a game, your health total just spikes to insane amounts. Like holy. And then of course Devil. Devil is the whole card. I should just make a tier for Devil itself because Devil is your whole deck, basically. The other cards are just supporting roles for Devil, because Devil wins you games or loses you games if you don't get it. And that's like one big issue with Daredevil. Might be consistency issues if like Devil is buried. Yeah, you cry. Um, but yeah, we'll hop onto the matchups. As always, only based on personal experiences. I would say I'm a bit more experienced with Daredevil, but it's not that I'm the best player with him in the world. So, and I haven't played every single one. Some are just like assumptions. The don't try tier. Well, like I said, people with high pressure action gain Raptors, you can't escape pins on their turn. If they start comboing onto you, you're basically dead. Widow discards your whole hand and then just kills you after Budapest. Genie discards your whole hand and then kills you, or just discards all of your devils. Sherlock discards all of your devils and kills you. Yeah. Slightly bad ones are mostly the heavy hitters that are like they deal insane damage over your low-ish defenses, so you want to keep low hand count, but you also don't because if you do, well, you might just not draw defense at all and then just take 6 to the face. Um, so you have someone like Bigfoot, Luke, Achilles, Moon Knight, some that are like not the best. Tomoe can pressure you insanely well. Annie will just smack you hard. Um, Sinbad should be good on paper because you can recur feints, but hey, you don't have draw, so Sinbad will just find you and kill you. He does Sinbad things. Tessa can just combo you in one turn and you're dead. Yeah. Then the even ones are like mostly the ones that play for a long value-oriented game. Um, Ingen is pretty even because Ingen actually has to go aggressive on you. Bullseye is even because against him you actually go aggressive almost. Um, She-Hulk, Yen, and Strange are probably the most notable ones for me because She-Hulk and Yen are value monsters. Strange as well, of course. And they're like going for devils is insanely important. It's just those are really fun matchups actually. I don't know if I had ever said that before that this matchup against Strange is fun, but yeah, this is. Then the favorite ones are like mostly the ones where you can just outvalue them. They maybe have some flaws in their deck where they might not be able to stop your incursion, or and then maybe also don't have action gain, like Yen. Um, Golden Bat, I would say, is favorite for you because yeah, he can technically deal big damage with his ability, but yeah, he only has 2 cancels if he doesn't recur them, and if he recurs them, well, he doesn't recur Alpine, so he doesn't get his ability as often, and yeah, well, you live. Medusa, like I said, only 3 ways to deal damage, and that's it. Jill and Little Red, 2 characters that only have a limited amount of feints, and their sidekicks can't feint, so hey, free devils. Electra sidekicks the hand can't cancel, so hey, infinite deck. And then, well, the 3 win characters are just like the ones that are bad, and Wukong. Wukong cries because Wukong is all about just outvaluing it with like auxes and boosts, but he also doesn't have any counter, so he can't really keep up pressure, and you just run away the whole game, go for devils onto clones, and he cries. But hey, it's Wukong, who cares? And yeah, maps, last one. Daredevil, of course, usually likes a bit bigger maps, a bit larger maps with small pockets where he can like run away a bit more and also force adjacency with Son of a Boxer. Of course, you want to have a bit of freedom um, because, well, you don't have card draw, so you will be maneuvering a lot. So if you are like on Raptor Paddock and your opponent can get to you with a single maneuver every single time, well, you kind of cry because, hey, you might just not draw defense. Um, Also, a map with many connections might be good against multiple fighters if you're playing against someone with multi-sidekicks or just a sidekick. In total, maps where there are like many small corridors where they can pin you really easily might be bad in that case. So like top three maps would be for me number one is McMinnville. It's just everything I just said is just on this map. It's pretty big but not too big. Um, it has many cool pockets. Like the top right corner is just like forced adjacency dot like the game, force adjacency, the life state. Um, the pink and dark gray zones are just like, yeah, it's force adjacency. So yeah, and you have many connections. So hey, getting pinned is not as easy. And Sherwood also like a bit larger map, and it has some cool loops where your opponent might not be able to reach you. Um, of course, like central area is also good for you because you can't get pinned there. Um, yeah, and then Hell's Kitchen, I would say as well, because hey, that's one map where even if your devils get cut off with the payphone, you might be able to get one back, or just if you just get one devil back with it at some point, that on its own is already good enough. And yeah, it's just a really good map for him, I would say. Um, pretty big, but not as big, not as easily to get pinned there. And yeah, that's it for Daredevil. Thanks for watching. Feel free to write feedback or questions in the comments, as always. And please tell me which characters you want me to cover next. I have seen requests for Luke, Annie Christmas, Houdini. Those are like all characters that I also like and are like on my list. I'll see in which order I will put them in. But yeah, plan for next week. Just like I said last week, is Moon Knight, and after that, Black Panther. He was the one that was requested most in the comments. So even though he is my most hated fighter in all of Unmatched, and that will probably never change because he fucking sucks. I hate him so much. Um, yeah, I will still have to do that because hey. Oh, and I've also seen a request for Wukong. Yeah, I'll not commentate that. But yeah, that's it. That's the upcoming 2 weeks. And yeah, we'll see you next time.